Hey everybody, what is going on? I want to turn off some audio here and say hello and welcome to today's Musician with Phil Gates. It's going to be a fun show, a good time, and it's an educational show. You all may know me from doing videos for different manufacturers, for Line 6 and Boss and Roland and Behringer and things of that nature, companies like that, and on my own, and with also Evertune at NAMM shows and things like that. So this show is kind of about the things they really kind of don't teach you when you go to a specific school, right? If you go to a music school, they may teach you guitar or engineering or something like that. But I'll tell you, we have a lot of times on the road, these people that are great scholars out of school, but they haven't been on the road and they don't know how to travel and things like that. So that's kind of what this is about, is to have all-encompassing item of information for people to interact with. And I see some people joined in and everything, and we have Uwe is coming in from Urnesh. What's up, man? How you doing? And that's what I want to encourage, is if you're popping in from somewhere, send a message on Facebook. This is going actually to Facebook and to YouTube at the same time. So I will be going back and forth, checking out some comments and things of that nature. You'll see me slide away, but that's okay. But mostly the bigger audience is on Facebook, so, you know, jump in. What's up, Mark Bennett? What's happening? So, and there is the delay between what I see and when I say it, so technology, way it goes. So, what I want to talk to is basically the 5 pillars of today's musician. Okay, and one is touring, right? Being on the road, getting those things done, gear, talking about all kinds of gear. And if there's manufacturers out there, I understand there was a manufacturer, Boss, released some new products today, and they're getting ready for NAMM in 2020, and I will be there at the NAMM show. So if you're going to be in LA, I'll see you there. Come hunt me down. Let me know what's happening. All right, well, let's coordinate beforehand. But touring is number one. The next thing is going to be recording, which is kind of what we're going to talk about today, because most of the time you're touring a record, right? So you have to have the recording to do the tour, and you have to have the tour to make the cash to play for the next record, right? It's a cycle thing. And I will try to slow down my speaking, because in the States I can speak like this and everybody understands. For the rest of the world, I will speak more slowly. I tend to talk fast. So we'll start with that. But so it's touring, it's recording, it's health. How to stay healthy on the road, how to stay healthy at home, to, you know, to maintain our craft and to maintain what you're doing in the world, right? Whether it's your voice and maintaining that, or your hands, you know, they change over time. You know, other health issues that can come up, just even a common cold, you know, and what does that mean to you for a recording session or for a live concert or something like that, that you're contractually bound to, right? You have to do that show unless you want to cancel and pay all this money back that's been prepaid and things of that nature. And it's a drag. As they say, the show must go on, right? So if you're jumping in the conversation and you want to send a message on Facebook, that's the one I'm going to be watching the most. Feel free to jump in and say, hey, it's so-and-so from coming in, like Uwe did. You know, hey, it's Uwe coming in from Urnesh, which is in Switzerland, which is, you know, it's a really cool town. So pipe in where you're coming in from, and, you know, and let's catch everybody and get caught up, all right? So the fourth thing is, I had said it was touring, recording, health, finances. It is the music business, and you can never separate those two words, right? I mean, there's the music half, which is super creative and super fun, and then there's the business half, which has to be taken care of. You know, you have to really kind of work out contracts and work out things of that nature, even at gigs, small club dates to big festival dates. The principle is the same. You want to make sure that, you know, it's like for myself as a band leader, I have to make sure that, you know, we're getting paid enough in a good way to pay for all of the travel and the gas and the flights and the hotels and the food and all of these things that really matter. And if gear breaks down, who covers that? you know. So it's an important thing to know what's in your contract and what's on your rider, and take care of the finances portion of it. And then lastly, the last item on it is not any less important, but live performance. We all love playing live, and we're all loving to play. And whether you're a fan watching, or whether you're a musician watching, or a booking agent, or an industry professional, any colleague of ours in the music industry, you know, live performance is super important. And, you know, it's a lot of work to make 90 minutes look that fun on a festival set, you know, so it's kind of cool. So as I mentioned before, oh, hold on. Wow, Bill Chan from O-Town, what's up? He's chopping in here. Hey, what's going on, man? He and I went to high school together in Oakland, California at Skyline High. What's up, Bill? Cool. Mark is online, Mark Helford, and I'll see you probably in a couple of nights if you're going to the Flieger, and if not, I will see you hopefully for the Little Wing and Friends shows that I have coming up with the usual suspects on the 26th, 27th, and 28th of December in mostly around Ravensburg, Germany. So that'll be fun. So yeah, keep piping in. Mike Lovato, what's up, Mike? How you doing? So cool. So what I want to talk about today is the basics of recording, okay? And I'm going to go back over this because there's a lot of stuff that gets missed that's small, that makes a big difference. And I get to hear and produce a lot of projects, and I master a lot of projects still, even from over here. And I got to tell you that there's some basic things that are missing. So today we're just going to review some of the basic things about recording. And if you're a touring musician and you have your own song ideas, you have maybe a laptop on the road, and you have a time at the hotel to work out song ideas, but it's like, how do I get well recorded so I can use these tracks later on for the record, right? And if you're an artist at the house that's not touring, not playing, but still want to have some great performances and really good recordings, that's cool. This can help you with that. And also for the people that are songwriters and are creating records and making those things in the industry, yeah, you have those rough tracks that you take to the studio, but a lot of us now, we record at home, you know, and we make our records at our own home studios, and so you want it to be the best quality possible. And it's not always about the most expensive gear. It's really not. It's about using the best of what you know about a piece of gear. For instance, a lot of people have asked me, I'm just starting with recording at home. What kind of microphone should I get? Okay. That's a good question. Do you need to spend a lot of money on a microphone? Maybe not, okay? Not when you're just getting into it. And the other reference is, think of every live record you've ever really loved, okay? I mean, it doesn't matter what genre of music it is. If you've liked the record, it was probably a dynamic microphone, probably an SM58 that you're listening to the vocal from, and the record sounds great. Now, true, the noise floor is different, you know, because it doesn't have to be as critical as in a quiet studio room, like a vocal booth. But an SM58 does sound great. It's an industry standard microphone. They're super sturdy. A 57 and a bag of SM57s and 58s can pretty much cover you for a lot of different applications. Now, there are other cool microphones, so that's what I want to get into today. We're going to cover microphones. We're going to cover how they go into the mixer. We're going to cover the 5 elements of almost any mixer in the world. Now, there's mixers that have way more features and mixers that have barely any features. But the basics are still there. Let's see. Okay, Mark, I'll see you on the 26th, man. Cool. So what ends up happening is you have 2 basic kinds of microphones, dynamic microphones and condenser microphones. And dynamic microphones are like the ones you already know, like, let's say, an SM57. Let's pop one of those up. So this is an SM57. You guys know that one pretty well. This is the SM58. Everybody knows that one. This is a cool one for horns and for drums and things of that nature. This is a MD421 from Sennheiser. That's really nice. I tend to use this one for my vocals, the E835 from Sennheiser. I've been using that mic for a long time. And then, of course, in the studio, there's cool mics like the Neumann U87. So it's nice to be able to have a variety of these microphones to go to. So let's talk about one thing, because I don't want to go, okay, this is recording, and for the next 2 weeks we're going to do this, and then we're going to talk about finance, and then we're going to talk about health. No. I'm going to kind of combine these things and answer your questions in real time. So if you have any questions about this stuff, I'm checking out the messages. What's up, Agatha? And I will be able to answer them in real time. So this conversation can go in a lot of different directions, predicated on what you ask in the chat, because I think it's all fun. So back to the microphones. I want to go back to health for a second. You see on the left-hand side, there's a grill up there, and on the 58, there's a grill on top of the microphone, right? Now, I don't know how many times you've played festivals, but those grills, people tend to be really close with their mouths to those grills. Like, for instance, it's like, here's mine, you know, and it's pretty beat up and it's pretty used, you know, and when I'm singing, I'm getting into it pretty deep. So there's a lot of elements in here. There's nasty things like spit and drool and stuff like that. So if you're on a festival and somebody just did 90 minutes and they were all over the microphone and you have to play next, that's a health issue, okay? You can catch a cold or worse from just singing behind somebody. A lot of people carry their own microphones. I do. Mine are marked. I say, hey, tell the sound engineer I'd rather use my own microphone. Most times they don't care if it's a microphone that's pretty much well known and they understand how it works and it's not going to be crazy for them. You know, so, but that's the thing. And also you can clean these also, you know, if you have it, you can be in the dressing room and you can have a little bottle of rubbing alcohol or something like that or whatever, and just take off the cap, you know, spin it off, and just pour some fluid into it, pour some alcohol into it, shake it out, let it dry, and then it should be fine. Now, I'm not a germaphobe or anything like that, but that is part of touring. If you get a cold and you get a sore throat and you can't perform because of something simple like this, that's a drag. So I approach these things more from a, I need to do my tour point of view more than a, oh, there's germs. Yeah, I think you get the idea, okay? It's super simple, nothing to be crazy worried about, but just some people, I'm going to say things and give you a couple of different options, and then you choose which is best for you. I don't have any perfect knowledge of how things are supposed to be or the perfect way to do whatever. I have what works for me in a couple of different ways. I'll suggest them to you, and you can choose whether to leave them all alone or pick one of the options that I give and see how it works for you. Okay? Oh, what's up, Phil Wiggins? How you doing, man? Oh, man, we almost got to tour together, Phil and I. That would have been a lot of fun. That would have been really cool. Yeah, Bill, there is a lot of DNA on that microphone. So absolutely, you know. So you want to kind of take care of those things. And when we talk about the finance, all of these things, you're for any part of the band. I don't care whether you're a vocalist, bass, guitar, keys, drums, backup vocalist, orchestra, it doesn't matter. These things are our tools. These are our, it's just like a mechanic for, you know, a racing team. He has to be able to have his tools there. They can't be missing. They have to work, you know, and it's the same for us. So our microphones, our guitars, our drums, our instruments, those things, we have to take care of them. And so, you know, people ask why I put my, you know, I'm sorry, it's left to right. I put my PG on my stuff. It's not that I have trust issues, but if somebody steals something and I can't do my show, that's a problem. And so, and I hate it. I absolutely hate it when I see on Facebook or online people putting up pictures of their gear and going, it got stolen during load in or load out, or it got, you know, and here's a picture of it, and if anybody sees, that's just awful, you know. So protecting your gear and protecting the tools of your craft are super important. So Let's get back to the microphones. There's, like I said, there's condenser microphones, which is the U87, this kind of microphone. And a condenser microphone is actually two plates, usually gold spattered or better, two little plates, and they're sealed, and they have an air gap in between them. And as you sing, one is permanent and the other one moves. And as you move, it pushes on that air pocket. It's actually like a capacitor. And what it does is that little movement is balanced by two channels of 24 volts, plus 24, minus 24, which equals 48 volts phantom power. That's where it comes from. So with the plus 24 volts on one side and minus 24 on the other side, it's at a balance point, like a seesaw. It's balanced. And as you sing, it starts moving and that balance changes. And that creates a voltage, and that ends up going through the cable and translates your voice to signal for the mixer. So that's a condenser microphone. A dynamic microphone is like the name implies. It is a diaphragm that's connected to a coil, and as you sing, it presses on the diaphragm, and the diaphragm takes it to the coil. Coil takes it into the mixer, okay? So, or through the cable into the mixer. The diaphragm, because it is a physical item, then they can only be made so thin, are usually not so sensitive as condenser microphones. So you usually see condenser microphones in the studio, whereas dynamic microphones you'll see all over tour, all over the road. Oh, what's up, Leon? What's happening? How you doing? Leon Tunin's online with us. And Larry Paschal and Britt Marie. Hey, what's happening? Thanks for joining. This is Phil Gates talking about today's musician. If you're just joining us, we've been talking about just getting into the game of recording your stuff. Okay? So, a couple things that have come up in conversations is that once this signal from the microphone gets to the mixer, it's like, I have my laptop, I have my computer, I have an interface of some sorts, but what's this whole, 24-bit, 16-bit thing, or 44.1 or 48 or 96, okay, those numbers, okay. People are much more aware of them now than they were in the old days, so I'll just quickly cover it. Sample rate. Sample rate is how many times per second a picture is taken of your music, of your audio signal. Let's say it's a vocal from that dynamic microphone you're recording it. Or, let's say studio. It's a condenser microphone. So with 44.1 kHz, it is taking 44,100 pictures per second of your voice. So that's a pretty good resolution. It's almost like animation, like a cartoon. When they're really bad resolution, it's made with big jumps, and when it's great resolution, it's like a animation today, which is super cool. So that's sample rates. So 96K would be 96,000 pictures per second, which is a lot higher resolution. 48 is somewhere in between. Well, it's 48,000 pictures, not somewhere. It's exactly 48,000. And then, so that takes care of how much resolution do you want in it, how like the quality of a picture, how exact do you want it to be, okay? And CDs are all 16-bit and 44.1, okay? CDs are kind of going away. MP3 is the new standard, for better or worse. That's kind of what's happening. But let's talk about the bit depth, because it matters when you record. We talked about sample rate, which is the resolution, how fine a picture or how grainy a picture of your voice it is. Let's talk about bit depth. Bit depth is how many steps from quiet to fully loud. So for instance, if I had a bit depth of 4 bits, it's like I would be able to turn the volume just a little bit and it would jump greatly. It would be in this super logarithmic pattern. So I would crank the volume maybe to 1 and it's like really loud. 2 is like amazingly loud, and and that's basically all you have. Whereas 16-bit, you have more of that. There's more steps between quiet and loud. Okay, so you have, you can, as you move the dial from 0 to 10, it's a little bit more smooth, but it still jumps. Okay, 24-bit is even more refined. Okay, so you have more resolution of volume. So bit depth is your resolution of volume, and sample rate is your resolution of the actual audio picture itself. Bit depth, sample rate, pretty much done. Okay, so now let's get to basic mixers. Let me see who's all just jumped in. Colleen Crawford, what's going on, girl? And Matthias, hey, what's happening? So when you guys join in, say where you're jumping in from, so the other people can see, you know, in the chat, you know, where you're coming from, because that's kind of cool. You never know, you might have somebody in your same neighborhood, and you connect and make amazing music together. You never know. So thanks for joining. So let's talk about a mixer. A mixer is basically 5 steps. Okay, you have input gain, how to get the level into the mixer. You have EQ. You have aux sends, to send signals to different things. You have a pan, where do you want it, left or right? And you have a fader or a rotary knob for volume. Okay, so that's the basic strip, channel strip. And then you just multiply it by however many are there on a mixer. It can be 8 or 4 or 16, or I used to have a 32 by 2 or 32 by 4 by 2. Yeah. And so, or a 96 input like Neve console, you know, so you can have all of these channels, but they're all the same 5 items on these channels, okay? So what ends up happening is on different consoles, obviously there's different quality of the parts that make up the input stage, the EQ stage, and then these different sections, and we'll go through each of them to understand better what's happening with those, okay? So when you're in the mixer, and this is whether it's live or whether you're doing your in-ears, if you're on stage, in-ears are becoming more important. I have in-ears, artists for Ultimate Ears. They're really super cool. They've taken care of me with some awesome in-ears. And I love being able to adjust the signal going to my in-ears, because sometimes you're playing places and the cymbals are right behind you, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but if I'm trying to be an engineer and producer as well, 90 minutes in front of cymbals, I'd rather have my in-ears, which gives me 40 dB of separation between what I'm hearing and what's on stage. Then my ears aren't ringing at the end of the night. So EQ has to matter. So the EQing I'm talking about now, and these things that I'm talking about now, apply to studio or to live. It doesn't matter. So input gain, EQ, you have aux sends and aux buses, and panning and volume. So input gain. What's up, Bodo? Hey, he's coming in here, and he comes in from Hessen, Germany. Welcome to the show. Thanks for coming and hanging out. So what I want to talk about real quick is input gain. Imagine a fountain, a nice fountain in a movie or in a backyard, and they have the water coming from the top and it cascades all the way down, okay? Well, if there was only water just to fill the top bowl, all the rest of the levels would have nothing to work with, okay? It would be a terrible fountain. It would be awful. So the idea is to have enough water flowing so that it cascades down this nice, you know, waterfall in somebody's backyard or something, or whatever they want to have. The water needs to be there. I'm losing the name for something. But the deal is the same with audio. If your input gain is too low, the rest of the items in your mixer are not going to have enough to work with. So what ends up happening is mixers are dumb, you know. It's you turn up the treble or you turn up the volume, and it's going to amplify whatever it can get its hands on. Okay, so if you don't give it enough level, then as you turn it up, it's going to bring in hiss, it's going to bring in buzz, it's going to bring in all these other things, because you're telling it to amplify, and it's going to amplify. Maybe not what you want, but it's going to amplify. So the idea is to get as much gain into the mixer as possible without clipping and leaving a little headroom, especially with digital. In the old school days with 2-inch tape, we liked punching it +1, you know, on a 2-inch tape machine, because there was a lot of good grit in that. But in digital, 0 is the end of the road. It's nasty clipping after that. It's terrible. So when you're setting input volume, you don't even have to have the fader up. You don't have to be able to hear it. you can just look at the meters and have the person sing into it. And what you want to sing into the microphone when you're checking out the input gain, or what you want to play, is the loudest part of what it is you're going to record. If the song starts soft and you set the input gain for that, right? And then as the song gets louder, what's it going to do? It's going to clip. And it's going to be awful in the second half of the song or in the modulation at the final chorus, and then it's going to be terrible. And there's no way to really kind of make clipping nice again. It's just done. It's overcooked. It's too much salt in it, you know. So the idea is you have a good level with the loudest part of the song, so the lesser part of the song has an okay level, and as the song builds, you're not going to clip, okay? And that's handy for live sound engineers as well as for studio, because live, of course, sound check is never like the stage. Bob Pitts, what's happening? How you doing? Where are you coming in from, Bob? So, you know, sound check is always one thing, and then when the band comes out to play, it's always different, you know, so you always have to ride your gains in the first couple of songs because it's louder than sound check in a lot of cases. So input gain is important, whether you're doing studio or doing for your in-ears. If you're coming back through an in-ear mixing box that you have by you on stage, okay, and you're getting your own gain, maybe it's coming Cat 5 from front of house or something like that, but it has, you can adjust the gain. You want to do the same thing because you want to have a sound that is not blasting your ears in the loudest part of the song, because with in-ears, they're right there. You can damage your ears really easily trying to protect them, oddly enough. So get that volume set, then the rest of the night is gravy, and you get to have a good gig or your good recording because the levels are good, okay? Mic placement we'll get into in another show, but this one is still just the channel strip. What's happening? Andy, what's happening? Andy Lewis is online with us. How you doing, man? And so welcome to the show. So let's talk about EQ, which is the next part. And again, on the input gain, on nicer consoles and things with more feature sets, you have things like phantom power. You can switch on and off. You have low pass, high pass filters on them to get rid of rumble on the bottom end. You have different kinds of things in the input gain section. And we'll get into those as we do actually some demos live. We'll do some recordings on the show. So that'll be awesome and fun also. With the band, with my band, we'll probably be at a venue that we play often at, and we'll do some things there and broadcast the show from there. So that'll be actually kind of cool. So EQ is the next part. EQ can be simple high, mid, and low, or it can be parametric EQ, or it can be shelving EQ, things of that nature. People want to find out about EQs just down and dirty. There's scads and scads of books and highly educated people on the science of equalization, okay? Down and dirty, take a track that you know. It can be an MP3 music of whatever favorite artist you really know this song, and then put an EQ on it and start adjusting it and listen to what it does to the song. And then when you go, oh, that's that kind of nasal sound. That's, oh, what frequency is that? And you go, that's 1.2K is that nasal kind of thing. And when you take out 1.2, all of a sudden it warms up, okay? Because there's additive EQ where you're adding gain to a certain frequency, and there's subtractive EQ. 7 plus 3 equals 10, but so does 13 minus 3. Okay, so sometimes you can take away. I worked with a saxophone player. I was on tour with a great saxophone player, and he wanted a warmer sound on his saxophone. And instead of boosting the lows, because the PA was only one amplifier, it wasn't bi-amped or anything where I had a lot of power, so everything was, you know, kick drum, left-handed, keyboards and everything. So instead of pumping the lows, I took out a little bit of upper mids, and it gave the oral image of a warmer saxophone, and it worked out great, you know, because I was saving power on the amplifier, the sound was cool, everybody was happy. So you don't always have to add frequencies, add gain to frequencies for EQ. You can actually take away frequencies also, because gaining all the time can get you into trouble when you get to the mix, which we'll talk about later. So people ask, what is a low pass or a high pass filter? A low pass filter, okay, lets the lows pass. Or if you say a high pass filter, you can put a certain point and basically it passes the frequencies above it. It's typically a high pass filter, or a low pass filter is you set a frequency and everything below it will go through. Chances are things where you would use that at, a high pass, you would get rid of some grumble and hum and things like that under 60 hertz or 40 hertz, right? A low pass filter is where you would try to get past hiss on the top end, maybe like around 10 or 12K. And I'm saying these frequencies, but it's just all audio is basically full bandwidth, 20 to 20K, 20 to 22,000 hertz in frequency. 60 hertz being what comes out of your wall in the States, that's the frequency, and it's 50 hertz here in Europe. And you can still hear it. It's still an effective frequency, but it can be problematic just like higher frequencies can. So EQs. Okay. Then Tommy Zender and Robin, how you doing? Thanks for joining the show. What's up? Hey, Robbie Grausberg, what's going on, man? Good to see you too, brother, man. Robbie's a great keyboard player. You should check him out. So I'm going to talk about how this affects you in a big way. If you know about this and your business is music, it helps you everywhere. If you're recording in your studio at home, and it doesn't matter whether it's just a laptop and a microphone and a 2-channel I/O, or if it's a big, huge studio, it doesn't matter. The more you learn about this part of your craft, the sound end of it, the better it is. Because then you can go to almost any venue and you can tell an engineer, because the engineers at venues, they want good sound. And if you know what you're talking about and you can talk to them in their language, then the both of you can meet and it can be a really great gig. Sometimes you go to a house, like a venue, I mean, and you just trust the engineer. He knows that room better than anybody else, and telling him suggestions is not going to help at all, okay? And sometimes you have to literally lead them to the water. Most times, I would say 90% of the time, engineers are super cool, they get it, and they know what they're trying to do, they know the room, and they want a good night as well as you do. Having said that, for me, I know that I do have this little 1.2 thing, so when it comes to the sound, I might ask the engineer, hey man, on my voice, yeah, if you could duck a little 1.2K on my voice, about 3 dB, that would be awesome. And then he'll go, yeah, okay, that sounds fine, and we'll try it, you know. And now it's super fun. Hold on, let me see. Oh, cool. Yeah, man. Tommy, I'm looking forward to that club gig as well. I'm doing a hit at the Blues Living Room Club in 2020. You guys can check out my schedule at philgates.com or here on Facebook. Any social media, actually I can pop it up here, is you go to Phil Gates Music on Facebook. You can go to, guess again, Phil Gates Music on Instagram. Or you can go to, guess what, Phil Gates Music on YouTube. So you can check out any of those channels and we'll be able to get information on tour and things of that nature. So, getting back to this. Knowing your craft is not just your instrument on stage. You have to put on a show. That's your job. Whether it's in the studio or live, good performance. If you isolate yourself to saying, I'm just an artist, and that sound is not my job, I think, in my personal opinion, I think you're kind of not being helpful in that scenario, you know, because the venue has to have good sound for their audience that comes in. They have to have a good performance, good lighting and sound, and they need the band's help to have a conversation about what's going to be best for everybody, you know, because the idea is to win, to have a great show and great sound. So I know I'm laboring the point, but knowing EQ, knowing what effects you like, things like that are super important. And speaking of effects, segue into aux buses. People have asked me, what is an aux bus? what is a aux send or an aux bus, okay? And hey, Robin, happy holidays to you too. And she sends to all that are listening. Robin is super cool, and I wish you a great holiday season as well. And I will be in LA at the NAMM show. Hope to see you while I'm there. That would be super cool. So, talking about the show and going to these aux buses. People ask, what is an aux bus, aux send? I'll explain it completely in one simple analogy. Imagine that all of us, the whole internet, we're all living on one street, okay? And we all have kids. That would be a really big street. But if we all had kids and they were all going to the same school, okay, how would we get them to the school? We would send them by bus, okay? Not in every town. This is a general statement. But we would send all of our individual children to the same place, okay? That's what an aux send or aux bus is. You get to send certain amounts of each individual channel to the same place, whether it's a reverb or a delay or something else that you're plugging in. So, you know, that's all an aux bus is. So if you have 4 or 5 different background vocalists that are singing and you want them all to go to the same reverb, but if you send the same level, the bass voice is going to be booming and really take up and hit the reverb hard, where the high and mid voices may not so much. So maybe on the lower voice, the bass voice, you want to kind of bring that, not send so much to the reverb, aux sending something to the reverb, okay? And then on the other ones, you can adjust it so that now everybody is hitting the reverb at the right levels, and now it's a nice effect, because a reverb is not designed to be it can be, I will take that back. It can be designed to be whatever you want it to be. In general, a reverb is creating an environment, an atmosphere, whether it's a big hall or a church or all the typical settings that you see on a reverb. So you want to choose the right sound for what you're doing and see how it works and try it and, you know, to taste and see what happens, okay? So that's all with aux sends and aux buses, okay? So let's get to panning. Tony Bray, what up, Boney Trey? What's happening? Tony Bray and I go back. What's happening? We go back to sessions, man, 35 years ago, something like that, Tony? Man. We have these great sax player. You got to check him out, Tony Bray. Tony Bray Music, I think is his site or his page. Amazing tenor sax player in Austin, Texas, and a great musician, great cat. But yeah, thanks for joining in, man. So let's talk about panning. Is that important? Of course it's important. There's a couple of ways that you paint a picture of sound. One is the volume, how loud things are in reference to each other, the vocals being louder than the guitars and the guitars being louder than the whatever, okay? The volume settings are important, and also where. Like if you listen to some old Beatles recordings, the drums are hard pan left and George and the rest of the cats are on the right. It's the way they did it for some songs, not every song. But, you know, panning matters. So you can split keyboards like a Rhodes and then a B3 and split them between, one is in, you know, in a clock version of the audio world. One is at 10 o'clock and one is at 2 o'clock. Man, that's a good feeling, man. That's a really fat sound. If you put them both at 12 o'clock, you'll still hear them both, but try panning a little bit, you know. And it's the same with guitars and background vocals. Like if you have a stack of background vocals, let's just say 4-part harmonies, and you have 2 of each, at least 2 takes of each, okay? Or if you have a choir, you can paint a picture, maybe have the low ones in the middle and the higher voices towards the outside, panning from mids to highs on the outside, or try it the opposite way, whatever works best for you for that situation with that set of tracks. On my last studio record in LA called The 12 Rhythms, there's a vocalist, her name is Elizabeth Hangen, and she has sung on all of my records except for one. She is an amazing vocalist, and we were doing 24 tracks of background vocals on some songs. We would have like 116 tracks all told, and we would do 4 tracks of each harmony. And it was just so fat, big sound, you know. And so if you listen to the background vocals on New Kind of Funky or any of these other songs, she did a great job. And we had a lot of fun doing those by using panning as a way to have all the 24 tracks of backup vocals and still leave space for the band and for the vocal on top. So panning is important. Massimo Bonanno, what's happening? Massimo is a great producer and drummer from the Zurich area. He works out of a studio called Power Play. It's a super cool studio. And yeah, he's a great cat. Thanks for joining in. Vinny Heller, what's going on, man? Thanks for joining. And this is today's musician and with Phil Gates here. And so let's get to the last thing, which is volume. And of course, volume matters. And I'll tell you one thing that tends to frustrate people. I've done digital audio classes and mixing classes for lots of places, BMI and ASCAP and for the Grammys, and I've done a lot of these classes, and oftentimes somebody says, I can't get my vocal on top of the mix. I'm having such a hard time getting my vocals coming through. And that's what I want you guys to do is to show, you know, to say, yeah, I'm having problems. You can chat in here and go, yeah, and I'm having problems with hiss, or I'm doing this and this works good for me, or whatever. Just drop something in the chat, man, so that we can do this. It's live. That's what's so fun about it. So volume matters. When you have a problem getting your vocal on top of the mix, what I tend to do, because everybody wants to have the great band first, you know, and the drums are killing, you know, like my buddy Massimo, his drums are killing, man, and he sounds great. And then I bring in a great bass to bring up the track for the bass player, and man, and that sounds fat. Now the kick drum and the bass are super cool, and then it's like, or like in my band with Tom and you know, and Uwe and oh my God, I can't believe Slim Jim on bass. It's like super cool because now I've got the kick drum fat, and I've got the bass fat, and I've got the left hand of the piano, and Stefan Hugh on bass is killing it, you know. I have the band sounding good, and everything's rocking, and then I try to bring this one single voice over the top of it, and it's difficult. So when you lose the voice, and you can't get it on top, what I would suggest, start over. Bring everything down except for the vocal. Bring the vocal up so that you can hear it really great. It's super clear, and you go, yes, the vocal's here. There's nothing else blocking it. And as you start bringing up other instruments, you will hear when it starts to crowd the vocal, okay? And you will hear, as you bring up the drums, you'll go, yeah, okay, now bring up the bass a little bit. Okay, now that's too loud. Let me bring it back down a little bit because I'm losing something in the vocal. Then bring in the guitars. And with guitars and keyboards, this is where arrangements come into play. You know, if I play a chord and it's in the same octave as the vocals, the guitar might be fighting the vocal, or the keyboard might be competing with the vocal for frequency range, and it may be hard to hear it. So, and we'll do examples of this in probably in the next show. But what ends up happening is, if I play a different inversion of the chord, if I play a higher inversion so that the voice comes down through low, or if I play a lower inversion of the chord so the voice isn't fighting and it's naturally higher, then I've made an orchestration choice to mix. And there's another thing with guitars also that you can do called frequency holes. And what that is like, say a vocalist is singing and the heart of their vocals is going to be in a certain range. Okay, so if the guitars are in the same range, a mix to me, whether it's live sound or studio sound, a mix is like a movie. Okay, when you were writing the song, when you first heard the song, when you first had the idea, it was either a band song idea, like a Toto or Earth, Wind and Fire kind of sound or something like that, where it's everybody is together and equally vibing on a track. Okay. Or you hear it and you go, oh man, this is a great song for bass. This is like a Stanley Clarke tune, or this is like a Phil Collins tune, or whatever it may be. What is it you're selling? Is maybe you're a great songwriter and a great storyteller, and the vocal, the story that you're telling, is the most important part. That's your lead actor, okay? Because in a movie, there's a lead actor, there's a supporting actor, and then there's cast, you know, and you have extras, and you have other actors that are filling out the scene, right? And then you go into a restaurant and it's 75 people, you know, just murmuring like hamburger or something. I mean, but it would be a stupid scene in the empty restaurant and pretending that it's full, you know? So same with music. There's something you're selling. There's some lead actor, whether it's a guitar, it's an instrumental project and it's a guitar, or a saxophone is what the lead instrument is, or if it's going to be, you know, a vocal song, okay? Is it a duet? Are two voices important? Or is, you know, one voice important? You know, so, or is everybody's voice important? Is it a vocal group? You know, once you've established that, that's the point of your mix. Start there, and then start filling it in with the other cast members, and it'll start to become a scene, and you'll watch this picture evolve, and it'll be really cool. And there's one thing I missed on microphones. Dana, what's going on? How you doing? And Tom is the killer machine. I got to talk about this band. Just quickly, a great band in LA, wonderful band in Los Angeles. I had Ron Battle on bass, and Keith Williams on drums, and Danny Ritter on drums also, and Larry Houston on keys, and just great cats, great, and Ron Battle, if I didn't mention him already, on bass. Great band. But I moved to Europe, and now I was lucky. I got lightning hit twice. I've got another killer band, and you guys should check out these people. They're awesome musicians. You know, so I have Uwe Rodi on keys here. I have Stefan Hug on bass, and I have Tom Wagner on drums. And it's a really great band. I love these guys. They're great because they tour well. As well as being great musicians, they tour well. And that's what part of this show is about, is how to tour, how to be on the road, how to take care of finances, how to take care of all these things and be professional. And I've been lucky enough to work with a lot of great professionals, and it's really a nice feeling when you get to work with craft and talent and great human beings. It's a super fun thing. So, but I did forget to mention mic patterns. So we'll go over it quickly. There's 3 different mic patterns. This is a cardioid mic pattern, and this means that the sound is coming from the front of the microphone. So on this microphone, that means the sound is kind of coming like this, in a heart shape, in an upside down heart shape around the microphone, which is part of the reason why you can do this and you can't hear it. Like Whitney Houston used to always tap the microphone and you would not hear her fingers tapping. The other cool thing is that the pattern's picking up in front, it's not picking up from behind. And that means that it's not going to feed back into the monitor. Okay, so that's what's hip about a cardioid mic pattern, is that it's aggressive in the front and it's not aggressive at all from behind. Okay, now there are different versions of cardioid. There's hypercardioids and things like that, which have different pattern structures, but basically it's great in the front and quiet from behind. Omni is like it looks like, it's omnidirectional. It's from all over the pace, all over the grid. So what happens is, like, for instance, I keep going to the wrong side because it's opposite for me on this. So this is omnidirectional microphone, okay? So it picks up all around. So they're great because they pick up sound all over so that I don't have to talk directly into the mic for you to hear me. So that's kind of cool. And then what's nice for doing duets is a figure 8. And let me see if I have... No, I don't have my big mic here right now. Okay, it's no problem. Is that a figure 8 microphone picks up on either side. Actually, I'm going to pull this pattern back up one more time so you can see it, the figure 8. And I'm going to see if I can slide over and grab my mic. Oh, whilst I'm doing this. And not break anything. All right. So this is a vocal microphone. This is a SE Electronics microphone. It's super cool. And you can change the patterns on it. So what a figure 8 means is that sound can be recorded from this side and sound can be recorded from this side, the opposite side, but not so much here or there on the sides, which is great for doing duets, because I can sing here, you can sing this way, and we're singing to each other, and we can have the emotion of the song and be singing. And yet if we have lead sheets off to the side, lyrics or something like that, it's not going to be so much into the mix. So we can actually have paper here and it's not going to be terrible. but yet we still have this sound that's just our voices and not the whole room, not omnidirectional. So I had forgot to mention that. Sorry about that. And so that's the two types of microphones: dynamic condenser, three typical. There's also ribbon microphones and a lot of other microphones. This is in general basics, and those are the three mic patterns. So what I want to do now is I want to talk about, I don't want to get too much into effects and things like that on this show. I want to base it on what your responses are. So I would love for you to post up any questions you may have about anything with the music business. I don't care, contracts, writers, stage plots, flights, booking, anything like that. Just hit me up with the questions, because it's fun to talk about and we can all benefit. So it's all good. So I do also want to mention that if you're kind of digging what's going on, we can also do individual private lessons via Skype or Facebook or something like that. We can talk about that later. Send me a private message. I did mention I'm coming to NAMM. So for all of you that are going to be in the Southern California area, I think it's the 16th through the 19th. It's that weekend of January. So I'll be there for that. I'll be floating around, probably hanging out. Yeah, I'll be there. So let's connect beforehand. And also for manufacturers, I would love to do gear reviews on this show. Okay, so if you have a new product or something that you would like to have me talk about, I would be so cool. It would be so cool. I would be so cool. It would be so cool to be able to present it here on the show. And there's some companies that I'm already working with, like Boss. All the cats at Boss are super cool. I think they released some new products today. I'm going to be at the NAMM show as an artist for Boss. Super cool company, great products, great guitar products. So that's one cool thing. I'm also using, like I said, the Ultimate Ears, in-ears, and a lot of other things that we'll talk about, during the shows. So, so anything is open for the conversation. I dig doing it because it's super fun for me, and I like meeting everybody from around the world that comes in to join. Please do me a favor. I'm going to pop these up again. Please spread the word of what you're seeing. If you dig it, share it to other pages. Let other people know. There's no fee for it, so it's just fun information. Next week we're going to go into a different topic. I will announce it after this show. I'll put up a teaser probably tomorrow. But it's coming to a close. We've got 8 minutes left. So if there's any questions, let me know. And the other things I do want to talk about is the business of music. I will stand on this for the rest of the show, which I could talk years about. The music industry obviously has changed. In the old days, you had record labels, and they had people that would, artist development departments who would teach you dance steps or music lessons or how to dress or any of those things. You had a booking agent, a booking department who took care of all those things. You had a travel department. You had a finance department. You had a marketing department to make sure the posters were up in every town and things like that. They're still there, but not as much as they used to be. There are some labels that are still strong, going strong, and have great artists on them. But for a great many of us, we're making our own products. We're making our own CDs. We have to do our own booking. We have all the onus for all these things. It is now our responsibility to be all of these things, and it's super hard to work hard at your craft to be a singer or a guitar player or a drummer or a bass player, whatever it is, and then have to spend hours on the phone talking to booking agents trying to get them to convince them that they should book you, and also to talk to the rest of the band members and do rehearsals and do all your emailing and all your social media stuff and things like that. It is our job now. It's part of the job. It may seem tedious, and it may be tedious sometimes, but it's just as tedious as doing scales rehearsals or something else. Then there's light at the end of that tunnel. If you keep the facility in your hands to play what you hear in your head, that takes effort, that takes work, and the rest of it does as well. So, and if any booking agents are listening, I would love to talk to you about more gigs because I love playing everywhere, and I've got some great booking agents, and they're working hard for me in Germany and in Holland, and we had some fun in France and Belgium. So, it's super cool. So I enjoy working with as many people as possible. But those calls have to be made, and we have to do them. And the weight is on our shoulders to do it. And I just saw a thread today on Facebook about, what do I think about, somebody was saying that they hated, well, they didn't hate, that's a strong word. They were not happy with blues competitions. And they were talking about, man, just play the blues, and don't worry about the competitions. And there's a lot of, that's like a Ford or Chevy conversation. It's like, it opens a can of worms about some people love music competitions and some people don't. And Buddy Guy was in a competition in 1958, and that got him his first record deal. So there's a lot of great musicians that have never been in a competition and some that have. But these are kind of like the dialogue things that, I would love to chat about on this show. Is like, are competitions good or bad? And, head cutting, we used, that goes back to the 1920s, and going in and see who's the better player. It is a competitive market. We're all competing in any town, we're competing for the 12 bookable days, in a town. And there's 20 bands and there's only 12 days. What are you going to do? Somebody's going to get booked and somebody's not. And so it's an interesting business to be in. And Bodo asked me what I thought about the Tascam unit. I don't know that unit off the top of my head, so I'll have to look it up, but I will get back to you about that. But I would say that, any of the Tascam stuff is really cool. They make great products. If it's a matter of how to use it, or if you're having specific troubles with it, send me a private message and I'll get with you on that. I'll look up the manual and we'll talk through it. That's not a problem at all. So that's super fun. Agatha says, to do a studio internship workshop. That would be super kind of fun. Agatha asked, she posted, you guys can see, about a workshop. Yeah, I would love to do some workshops, and there may be opportunities for that. What I try to do when I am on the road is find a place to do that when I'm going to be in a city. For instance, I did that in San Rafael when I was playing at the Phoenix in San Rafael in California, or at different places, And so if I can get into town the day before or something and do a clinic that day, because right now I'm in Switzerland. So, but there's a great club called the Flieger, which is in Tettnang, and it's a great club. So I might do some workshops from there, which would be kind of fun, and I can still live broadcast those from here. But it's super fun. I mean, the whole concept of playing and being an artist and being on stage, and now it's super fun, is with the technology, is the engineer can come on stage with the iPad and he's controlling the sound if they have a digital console, right? I mean, because for me, a guitar speaker only basically goes to 8,000 hertz. It goes to 8K, right? So I have that sound. But the monitors, they're full bandwidth. They go 20 to 22. So when I get what comes right off my microphone on my amplifier and it goes through the PA system and he has to mix it for the front of house, and then if there's not a sound monitor engineer, and even if there is a monitor engineer, sometimes I go, can you turn off the monitor? And they'll turn it off. They're all cool guys and gals. And I'll say, this is the sound of my amp. Now bring up the monitor. And 9 times out of 10, they'll go, got it. And they'll adjust it. And that's how I get my sound on stage, is because if I'm comfortable, I'm going to have a great time. I'm going to have a great time anyway. But if it's comfortable on stage, then we're all jamming on stage. And if the sound engineer, we're working together, because this is a symbiotic relationship, and he's not dealing with a loud guitar player. I don't know who that could be. If he's not dealing with that, and because you're working together, he can get a good mix for front of house. And I've done front of house mixing. I did it at a great jazz club many years ago and was privileged to work with some of the best in jazz. If anybody's interested, just go to philgates.com and look at credits. But it was such an education to make a partnership with the artist on stage to get a great sound and a great show for that audience, because that's all of our jobs. So I will end the show with just saying, I appreciate you coming to check out the show. It's super fun to do. This is a weekly show, so set your calendar for it. It'll be every Thursday, noon Pacific Standard Time, 9 o'clock on Central European Time. My name is Phil Gates. This is Today's Musician with Phil Gates. It's been super fun. Come back next time. Tell everybody about it. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Friend me. Join the Phil Gates Music Team on Facebook. Come to the shows. Look at my calendar at philgates.com and come to the shows if you're anywhere near. And I would love to see you there. Come up and say hi. All right, I will talk to you all next week. Have a great evening and day. Bye-bye.